Ah, hello. I see you've come back to find out what's going on with Mathis and Redwall. So come along as we dive into chapter 15. Dawn arrived as if it were aware of the previous night's event. Heavy gray skies and steady rain prevailed over Redwall and the Mossflower area. Abbot Mortimer looked old and stern as he addressed the assembly in Cavern Hall. The atmosphere was decidedly subdued. Sleeping at your post, allowing the enemy into our abbey to steal which we hold most dear. Is this the way you defend us? The abbey's shoulders slumped wearily. There was an awkward hush. Anger and guilt lay thick upon the air. The kindly old mouse shook his head and held up a consolatory paw. Forgive me, friends. I criticize you unjustly. We are all creatures of peace, unskilled in the art of war. Yet when I saw the late rose this morning, I could not help but notice that its leaves are all shriveled. The tiny rosebud have died. Martin the warrior is gone from our abbey. He has left Redwall. We are forsaken. There will be a hard and sorrowful days to come without him among us. The mice and woodland creatures shuffled their feet and gazed at the floor. They knew the truth in their father abbot's words. But hope springs eternal. There was one voice raised, that of Mathis. A bit of good news, he said. I have just come from the infirmary. Mr. Fieldmouse is out of danger. He will live. The relief was audible throughout Cavern Hall. Tensions were eased. Even the abbot temporarily forgot his gloomy pre-dedications. Thank you, Mathis, he cried. What heartened news. I must say that the terrible injuries received by Mr. Fieldmouse almost had me believe the worst. But look at yourself, my son. You should be resting. Your face is still swollen after the fight with that black rat. Mathis gave a lopsided grin. He shrugged cheerfully. Don't worry about me, Father Abbot. I'll be all right. The mice smiled with pride. A brave little warrior, Mathis. He put new heart into them. Their resolve strengthened as he continued. Black rat indeed. He didn't even scratch me. Well, only a bit. But where is he now? This sly one. Deep under the soil, if the insects are doing their job properly. Listen to me, friends. We of Redwall are tough lot to kill off. They couldn't finish Ambrose Sprite, could they? Why, even the black one, armed with a dagger, couldn't slay Mr. Fieldmouse. So what's a scratch or two to a mouse like me? Cheers for Mathis's speech rang to the rafters. Constance sprang up beside him. shouting heartily. That's the spirit, friends. Now let's see you all back out there at your post. We'll be wide awake this time. And heaven help any dirty rats that come marching up to Redwall this day. With wild yells, very uncharacteristic of peaceful mice, the friends seized their staves and charged out, fired with new zeal. After a while, Constance accompanied the abbot to see Mr. Fieldmouse, while Mathis went with Methuth to the great hall. Together they surveyed the torn tapestry. The young mouse stood with his paws folded, an expression of disgust upon his features. The old gatekeeper patted his shoulder. I know how you feel, Mathis. I could see you were only putting on a brave face for the benefit of others. That is good. It shows you are learning to be a wise leader. You hide your true feelings and encourage them not to give up hope. Mathis gingerly touched the swelling on his face. Aye, that's as may be, old one. But can you see as well as I that Martin is gone? Or I should say, hold on, where was I? Aye, that is as may, that's as may be, old one. But you can see it as well as I that Martin is gone. Without him, I do not think we can win. Methus nodded in agreement. You might be right, my young friend. But what's to be done? Mathis staggered slightly. He leaned against the wall, rubbing a paw across his brow. I don't know. In fact, the only thing I know right now is that the abbot was right. I think I'd better go and lie down for a bit. Refusing Methuse's help, the young mouse lifted the old one, gazing at the torn tapestry. He trotted off unsteadily in the direction of the dormitory. On the spiral staircase, he met Cornflower. Ooh, I see a love brewing there. Hello there, he said as cheering as he could. How is your father? Cornflower looked at Mathis solicitously. He's doing fine, thank you, Mathis. I'm just going to get some herbs for the abbot. Shouldn't you be lying down? Your face looks terribly puffy. Mathis winced and leaned against the banister. Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to my room for a good long rest. But don't you worry, before long I'll make those rats pay dearly for hurting your father. Mathis staggered weakly into his room, but the moment he closed the door, he became a different mouse. With bright, eager eyes, he groped under his bed and brought forth the waste pouch that had belonged to Shadow. Tucking the long dagger into his belt, he wrapped the climbing rope around his shoulder and said aloud to himself, Wait, Cluny, you and I have a score to settle. Keeping a mound of earth between himself and Brother Rufus's, Mathis silently looped the rope around the Mathis slightly looped the rope around a projection at the edge of the parapet. Fortunately for him, Rufus was looking in the opposite direction. Mathis started to slide down the rope on the mossflower side of the wall, where the woods came close up to the abbey. He had imagined the descent would be very difficult, and surprised himself by handling it with ease. His confidence growing as he slid swiftly and noiselessly to the fern-covered ground. Crouching in the undergrowth, he mentally rehearsed his plan of action. He would go through the woods to St. Ninan's church, avoiding the road that was being watched by sentries. Once at the church, he would discover where the piece of tapestry was kept. Then he would create a diversion of some kind. While Cluny's horde was occupied, he would snatch the tapestry and get back to Redwall with all speed. Mathis dug deeper into the ferns and was soon just a silent ripple making through the lush summer green of mossflower towards the church of St. Ninan. Chapter 16. At the camp of Cluny the Scrooge, the rat army was grinding itself up for war. Weapons were being sharpened upon churchyard headstones. Under the critical eye of Redtooth, a band of rodents was gnawing off a length of planking from a rickety latch gate fence at the rear of the church. Others collected stones to provide ammunition for slings, while some coiled ropes around their bodies. Inside the church, Cluny sat up in the choir loft, the image of barbaric authority. He held the scoring tail in one claw, while gripping in the other was his war standard, topped by the ferret skull with the addition of the tattered tapestry square, depicting Martin the warrior. He gazed proudly at it as his armor dressed him for war. At Cluny's feet were the Vole family. They were bound. He flicked his tail at them and sneered. "Ha, look at me, you spineless little creatures. Did you ever see such a leader of fighting animals as Cluny the Scrooge? Soon I will have every creature that moves down on its bended knees to me." Mr. Abram Vole glared defeatedly at his captor. "You filthy great bulge rat, while all silence," roared Cluny. "Hold your tongue, Vole, or I will deal with you and your family, here and now, before I set out to conquer your precious abbey. Do you see my new battle flag? That is Martin the warrior. Yes, the same one who is supposed to protect it, that doddering, odd old abbot and his witless mob of mice. Now Martin is mine. It is more fitting that he travels at the head of real warriors. He will lead us to victory. Cluny ranted and raved on, the light of madness in his eye. Death and desolation shall be the reward of those who dare stand against Cluny. The only ones I will spare are those I might choose to serve me. Mrs. Vole struggled upright, but was forced back down by Scumnose and Fangburn. Chattering with rage, she shouted at Cluny, "You will never bend, Redwall, to your evil will. Good will prevail. You'll see, Cluny. We are tied up, but our minds are free." Crack! Cluny lashed out with his long tail, sending the Vole family flat upon the floor. Mr. Abraham Vole struggled to shield his wife and son with his body as the tail flattened out a second time. "A touching little speech, Vole, but you wrong me. I don't want to capture the spirit of Redwall. I mean to kill it. Take those whining creatures out of my sight. Lock them in the hut out back, leaving them to imagine their fate will be when I return." Colin Vole shrieked in terror. His mother and father struggled bravely as they were dragged off. Redtooth marched in and saluted Cluny. "The horde is ready to march, Chief." A rat armor set the war helmet firmly upon Cluny's head. He snapped the visor down and kicked aside the rat who had fixed the poisoned barb to his tail. Striding out into the churchyard, Cluny climbed up on the wrecked gatepost. His fierce gaze out across the mighty army, black rats, brown rats, gray rats, piebald rats, skullen weasels, furtive toads, and sinus ferrets, all gathered around their weapons, glimpsing and dripping with the rain. As Cluny exhorted them, they roared back their friend's replies. "Where does Cluny's army go? Redwall, Redwall. What is the law of Cluny? Kill, kill, kill. Who will lead you to victory? Cluny, Cluny, Cluny the Scrooge." Springing down among his army, the warlord waved the banner high up overhead. With a mighty shout of the horde of Cluny the Scrooge marched out upon the road of Redwall Abbey. And with that, I'm going to stop here because chapter 17 seems a bit long. Until next time.